There are the distractions and the desperation to kind of pigeonhole me or say, she's an anarchist, or she might be a liberal, or she might be green, or she might be... I am here because I was asked to be here. And I am determined to do the best possible job for Fremantle and for Fremantle's future.
Hello everyone, this is A Piece of Cake. I'm Emma Pegram.
And I'm Kate Hulett.
It is Monday afternoon.
For you and I, it is Monday afternoon. For the
We're
listener,
recording.
Good Tuesday morning to you.
And it's 26 days until the election.
I am incredibly grinding stomach anxious because we have all of Tuesday, all of Wednesday and half of Thursday to resolve the citizenship situation. But on the plus side, we do have our 100 signatures, I think, almost sorted.
Yeah.
So we've got that bit done, citizenship bit, still in the balance.
Yeah.
But aside from that, Emma, what are we talking about today?
Well, we've been wanting to talk about some of the major party myths that are out there. And I reckon we've got 4 on the list today. And then I reckon we'll have more in the future.
So we want to talk about teals and I'm using my fingers in inverted commas, the Teal Party and that stuff that's been swirling around us since the very beginning, since we started.
Yeah, and like when we were running the state campaign, so many things came up, so much misinformation. And some of these kind of myths and ideas we were expecting and had been around for a while, and others I think we were quite surprised about. And I think something that has been really effective is this scampaign. I mean, you're not wrong. Sorry, this scare campaigning about the Teal Party.
Yes, Teal Party.
And it started coming up heaps, and we had people coming into the office asking, are you part of the Teal Party?
Or in an aggressive way as well.
Yeah. And so I thought we could unpack that.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Something else.
So, Kate, are you part of the Teal Party or what?
It's interesting when we talk about teals as well, because there's kind of a weird prejudice on both sides, including people that we, are working on the project for us as well. And initially I was like, what's the big problem with saying teals? Why is everyone so scared of it? Because, rewind, teals, the word teal was coined by Murdoch Media as a short and easy way to say community independent. And the colour teal, the idea of teal, we say Liberals are blue, Labor's red, Greens are green. So all of the teal candidates, again, I'm saying that in inverted commas for those on audio only, were running in very safe Liberal seats, so blue seats, but they were running with environmental and kind of climate emergency lenses on. So the media said, well, they're in a blue seat, but they're wearing green, ideas. So there we go, blend those together, you get the colour teal. So all of those candidates were running as community independent. So they were just working for their community. And they had been, like this campaign here in Fremantle, they were off the back of a Voices for that area kind of movement.
Some kind of community.
People get together
effort.
and go, we are tearing our hair out because our representative is not representing us. We want to find someone that will represent us. So all of these individuals are individual, and there is not a party. There is no one above them saying, you've got to do this or that, or this is going to be your policy, because all of those people reflect their communities. They are responsible for speaking on behalf of their community, and that's it. So there is no party. There is no overarching thing. The other strand to this is, 2 parts. For me personally, we are here in Fremantle, which is a very safe Labor seat, and it has been in almost all levels of government, Labor. Red. And I am running on, again, a community independent platform, so I am not responsible to anyone but the community. And, you know, one of the most important things that's come up through the community is protection of our biodiversity, looking after trees and the ocean and making sure our coral doesn't turn white and that we have forests to walk through and all those sorts of things. So there is that element of, again, inverted commas, green, but green and red
Do not make teal.
do not make teal.
I mean, you said there were two things. I assume you were going to...
Well, then I was going to say, so we're talking about the idea that these people are all connected and they're all controlled by a puppet master, and what the kind of line is, or the connection there is, that many of the community independents have been supported financially by an organisation called Climate 200. Climate 200 is effectively a crowdfunding platform where people across Australia can contribute money to support candidates running with the kind of policies that revolve around climate action, putting women, you know, ensuring women's equality and integrity. So any old person around Australia can apply for Climate 200 funding if they intend to run a campaign. And the Climate 200 board, which is made up of people from the Liberal Party and the Labor Party like John Hewson, and I can't think of any others, but I'll put it in afterwards.
People from across the spectrum.
So they're the board, and they look at the applications and they go, yep, they look like they're going to run a good campaign, let's contribute to them. Now, the reason that's really important is it's so expensive to run a campaign that there is almost no way you can compete with a major party. I mean, even with contributions from Climate 200, it's really, 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 really hard to compete with the machinations of a existing political party. So the other part to this story is, and this is the other name that you'll see as part of this big kind of myth.
And also, I think, myth number 2.
The millionaires calling the shots. Now, Climate 200 was set up in 2019, I believe, by a chap called Simon Holmes à Court. He was living on the East Coast, originally from Perth. His mum has a gallery in West Perth, and his dad was the first billionaire in Australia, who's since passed away. Now, Simon set up this platform, Climate 200, because he was so worried about Scott Morrison and what his impact was having on our country and our progress and how we were going to become strong and wealthy and, you know, resilient into the future. He thought, I'm going to set this up so we can help some candidates run against these Liberal seats, which are, you know, really hard to win against. He set that up, he started it, then he started taking all these donations from across Australia, just regular people putting $20 or $200, whatever. And now he contributes 2% of the Climate 200 pot. And I think there's something like 44,000 people that are donating to Climate 200 across Australia. And I've spoken to a number of donors at door knocks, you know, people that I contribute to Climate 200, but, you know, I'm hope that part of that donation that I've made might come to you, sort of thing, which is great. So the millionaire that people mention is Simon Holmes à Court. He set this idea up. The funding body that might connect a lot of these candidates is Climate 200, but also worth noting that you put your submission and say, this is why I'd like the money, and then they go yes or no, and then they give you the money, and then they're not like, you don't have to, you know, when you apply for grants, arts grants or whatever, and then you've got to do what's it called?
The remittance.
Oh my God.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
And like prove how you spent the money and demonstrate its impact. There's none of that. I mean, so far there hasn't been. I don't know. Maybe that will come.
Well, I think what's more relevant is that they support campaigns. They don't support the work of like sitting parliamentarians. So they don't work with and influence candidates once they get elected.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they will support anyone running in a campaign who they deem to, you know, kind of be aligned with the right values. So that's kind of that big blob of a myth.
I reckon that these are two very convenient myths for the major parties to run. And it's interesting because, as you explained before, when the kind of Teals term was coined in the media, it wasn't always like a problematic or a nefarious. It didn't always have that characterisation, but it feels like in the lead up to this election, probably a few months ago is when I started to really feel it out there in ads and
it becomes like she's just
really
a Teal or whatever. But the interesting thing is, I think at maybe the last election, I think David Pocock was the recipient of the highest amount of C200, Climate 200 funding, and he's never been called a Teal. So it's got this kind of real misogynistic kind of like gendered belittling meaning to it. So when people say to me, oh, she's just a Teal, or she's part of the Teal Party, or you know, that kind of like, she's just a little foot soldier for someone else. It actually belittles the community who have come together in their own time with their own money and their own intent and effort to find someone to run for them by saying, oh, she's just whatever. It completely discredits and discounts all that passion and care and motivation. And, you know, that disinformation and inaccurate reporting absolutely benefits the two major parties because, of course, a citizenry that is unsure about what this is unlikely to embrace it. Whereas it's easier just to go Liberal or Labor, let's just stick with that. And it comes back to their absolute determination in maintaining power. So they will cede all of this stuff in order to maintain their power, which they are every election cycle losing. You know, they want to keep people unsure and scared so that they won't be confident in their vote. So the two major parties want to keep us unsure.
I also think what's interesting and what I've observed over the course of campaigning is that, like, a lot of people are struggling, including the press, I think, are struggling to get their heads around where you sit in all of this because, as you said, you're not running in a traditional Liberal seat. You're running in a really safe Labor seat with a completely different history and a different makeup. And it's fun. I feel like even, you know, conversations I've had with people who are, you know, donors to Climate 200 or who are not even talking about the Teals with a negative like angle, they don't even really kind of know where to put you in that equation. And the press are kind of like, quite often I feel like kind of falling over themselves with it a little bit. They're like, are you a Teal or are you a this or a that? And I mean, we know that, you know, this election is kind of different because Climate 200 are supporting lots of candidates and they're not all in Liberal seats and there's a few Labor and there's a few others and they're, you know, in different parts of the country. But what do you make of that? Like what makes Freo different and how do you kind of, I mean, have you like put that together in your head yet?
I mean, I just keep coming back to the community really wanted someone that was going to represent them, someone that they could trust to speak on their behalf. And they asked me and I said yes. And we seem to be, or politics seems to be absolutely fixated on the fact that we're kind of football teams. Like, you have to be in that team and you cannot change and there cannot be any people playing outside of the football team. And actually there can, and there has been for the past, since 2013 was the first community independent. So over 10 years. And there's more community independents being voted in, which means people are voting them in and they're staying in power and they're contributing to our politics and making the country better, making laws and policies and all that sort of stuff better. It doesn't, you know, for me, I am not doing this for a party. I am doing it for Fremantle. And I don't care about aligning myself or pigeonholing myself. I just want the best outcomes. Like, if you think about the bigger picture, that's all I care about. I don't think, well, you've got to be all of these things, otherwise, what about us? You know, it's like, get real. You know, I don't care about the pigeonholing or the parties, and I just have been asked to do this thing on behalf of Fremantle, and that's what I'm going to do. And there are the distractions and the desperation to kind of pigeonhole me or say, she's an anarchist, or she might be a liberal, or she might be green, or she might be... I am here because I was asked to be here. And I am determined to do the best possible job for Fremantle and for Fremantle's future.
I mean, that leads, I think, nicely into talking about the other kind of, well, and I think the third myth that is propagated about you, and you know, other independent campaigns, which is this like...
Or other people in the Teal Party.
The other Teals, of course. It's this cashed up and controversial thing, which was our favourite line that was written about you
I never
from the state campaign.
felt better than when I got called cashed up.
Cashed up and controversial. I mean, can we talk a bit about that? Like in reality, what actual money did we have? Where does our money come from? How did we spend it? How are we going to, you know, what money are we getting for this campaign, and how does it compare to, you know, the major parties, which...
Well, flashback to the state, we had a 130,000 cap to spend, and so we were trying to raise that money. And we were fortunate to have 50,000 that we applied for from Climate 200, and we got that in 2 tranches. And I think they wanted to see it kind of how effectively we were using it. So we got a smaller amount, and then we got the remaining amount. And the rest of the 80,000 came from the community. So some little, from $5 to, you know, a couple of grand from people who had a bit more money to
including
contribute.
One larger donation from
Yes, that's right.
philanthropist.
Yeah. So that money had to do everything. And so thank goodness we've got zillions of brilliant volunteers. But I reckon the biggest hunk of it went on advertising.
Yeah. Across the board, like between socials, the newspapers and the internet and outdoor screens. Yeah, that's like, it's such a big transfer.
And effectively
of wealth to
the rest
advertising
is printing and like call flutes, T-shirts, brochures, that sort of thing. So interestingly, we rely on, for example, leafleters to go and drop our letters. And during the state campaign, I reckon they got 5 or 6 letters from Labor that went through the post. And those cost something like...
I think we looked up as like 70 cents per...
Yeah. But so
piece
maybe it was
something?
like 10 grand or something per
drop to go
So-
to every household. Yeah.
So with that and printing, it would have been at least 80 grand in just their printed matter, which was almost our whole budget. So they were very quick to jump on the fact that I had a donation from Climate 200 and called me cashed up. But of course they had easily, I mean, their bus stop advertising and their billboards and their car that drives around would have been more than any of the donations we received. We had $130,000 for our first campaign for state. The federal campaign is huge in comparison. So what do we...
Yeah, well, for the federal campaign, we kind of looked at the budget, we looked at what we spent at the state, and we just sort of went, I mean, this is not all the work we did on it, but we kind of went times 4.
Multiplication.
Roughly 4 times the size. And we're working on raising that now. And your Section 44 piece has been a little bit of a barrier to that, but... Well, I guess we can do another episode on our money for this campaign.
Yeah. Totally.
But I mean, let's move on. Let's go to myth number 4, the final myth.
What's myth 4?
Hung Parliament.
Oh.
Tell me what the myths are that are out there about the hung Parliament that looks like we're certainly headed toward at this election.
Well, I'd like to put it on a record that it looks like, because Peter Dutton's being such a buffoon and making such terrible policy announcements and walking them back because everyone's like, what are you talking about? It looks like Labor are pulling ahead in the polls and the Liberal Party are falling behind, which particularly in Fremantle, the electorate will be breathing a sigh of relief because we are a Labor kind of body overall. But it's interesting seeing how neck and neck they have been. Now, both of them want to have power in government in their own right. So they want a majority of seats for themselves so that they get to be Prime Minister and they get to make the rules and argue them and push them through as they can. What we are heading for is a hung parliament whereby neither major party can form a government by themselves. They need to have some crossbenchers, whether that be independents, minor parties, or I think that's it. Or ghouls and goblins who can help them pass their laws and their bills and their legislation and so on. So we've had a minority government before when Julia Gillard was in power, and she at that time oversaw a government that passed the most legislation ever. They enacted the most robust environmental protection laws. They introduced NDIS, blah, 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 blah. Lots and lots of stuff went through because they had to negotiate to get stuff through. And everyone's coming together and negotiating to get good outcomes. A hung parliament, a minority government, means that we get better laws and legislation and policies and everything else for individuals and for the country. The independent candidates are all normal, sensible people who just want an effective government. And I think when you don't get fixated on your party winning, you can do that.
Of course, the major parties want people to be afraid of the idea of minority government. And they say things like they sort of spread the idea that it's going to be unstable and
Chaos.
Nothing's going to happen. And simultaneously, nothing's going to happen and it's going to be chaotic.
Absolutely.
But I think, we talk about this a lot, that actually what you hear the independents talking about is that they're focused on like long-term stability and they see, one government get in and do a bunch of stuff and then another government get in, repeal everything and insert their own agenda, and back and forth it goes in these like 3-year or 6-year kind of swings. And obviously, I mean, that is literally the definition of instability.
Absolutely.
So, yet again, myth busted.
So the other thing is people, so say there's neither Labor nor Liberal have enough seats to form a government. So then they go, all right, we need to form a minority government with enough people to get us enough seats to be the majority. So that's when we have the minority government. So they will, whoever it is, Dutton or Albo, will start going, all right, who are we going to talk to come along with us and help us become the majority government here? Now, what that means is they need to find a certain number of people who will agree to, what's the phrase, provide confidence and supply. So one of the leaders of the party will look at the crossbench and the minor parties, and that's like the Jackie Lambies, David Pocock, the Greens. They're looking for the support from the independents, minor parties, in order to have confidence and supply. And what that means is the supply means that these independents will just ensure that the day-to-day runnings of the parliament and the government and the stuff that the government pays for, like public schools and hospitals and roads and, all that sort of stuff, police, whatever, it continues being paid for. So that doesn't kind of grind to a halt and then people are going, there's no hospital. Yeah. So they seek to form an alliance with people that will go, yep, okay, we'll make sure
we'll back you for that.
We'll back you on that. The other thing is a confidence term, which means that if the other party says, we don't have confidence in you as a Prime Minister anymore, the group of independents who agree will say, we've got confidence in you and we will help you stay in. However, that can change. You can change your mind on that. If the leader starts going doolally, you can say, all right, there's no more confidence.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's important parties. It's not like a formal agreement. There's no contract signed.
But the most important part is the independents and the minor parties never have to vote the same way as the party, ever, ever, ever. Every vote they make is their own, and whether it's aligned with their minor party or with their community or whoever it may be. So the independents and minor parties always remain independent and as a minor party, but they can just make sure that the government keeps ticking over and government jobs are still being done.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is the whole beauty of it, because you're getting people in Parliament who can have a real voice, don't have to vote with the party, can actually speak on behalf of their communities and can, pressure the government and shape the agenda that the government is going to be acting on.
And when the leaders and the parties are negotiating to say, all right, who's going to come along in my little team to help form the government, they have to negotiate with you. So they might say, all right, what do people in Fremantle want? What do we need to look at here? What are you guys going to give us so that we can, give you confidence and supply? So it's actually so powerful. And then it's powerful because of that. You kind of they have to negotiate with someone that wants something. So I want something for Fremantle, which is, whatever then the community wants. That's a bad line. But we will be in a position to negotiate with the government to prioritise Fremantle and what Fremantle needs. And then for every bill or law or legislation, whatever comes up, I can vote however the community want me to vote. So if we don't want AUKUS, I can vote against that. If we, if we do want the nature positive laws to go through, we can vote on that. So, we've spoken before about how if you're in a major party, you have to vote the way of your major party. We never have to capitulate to the major party. We are still independent, but extra powerful. And that means Fremantle becomes extra powerful.
Totally.
The power that we know is within us is now going to be forced out of our eyes, like, what's his name? Jem and...
I've got no idea.
Okay. It's a reference that probably no one will get anyway. So it's just a powerful person with lasers coming out of their eyes. God.
Why do you think the major parties are so keen for these misleading characterisations of the independents to be out there?
Misleading myths. Because they are absolutely determined to hold on to power at all costs. And it serves their interest for us to be a bit confused about what's happening. And, if you hear people say Teal Party enough, then you think, no, guess there's a Teal Party. And if you hear they're rich and they're controlled by a millionaire or all that stuff, aside from it's so infuriating to me when they say cashed up, when then you just look on any website and it shows the donations to the major parties and there's zillions of dollars coming in from gambling, fossil fuels, alcohol, everything you can imagine that's kind of
property
classed as social harm. And it's and we get $25 and they're like, all right, rich girl. But it benefits them, of course. They're discrediting us. They're belittling us and minimising our impact. And of course, as we've said, that just minimises and reduces the voice that the communities have asked to have. And by minimising and belittling me, that's just doing that to the community.
Something we talk about a lot is the fact that the major parties could respond to the electorate in other ways. Like if the electorate are going and looking for other places to put their vote.
God, imagine. Yeah. Work harder. Come listen to us. Or represent us properly. Any other news that popped up today?
I don't think so.
Dutton did some backflips.
Yeah, he's really joined the circus, hasn't he?
He's the circus.
It's circus time, baby.
Leader.
You can juggle. You and Peter could be friends. Him backflipping, you juggling. That's right, everyone. You heard correctly. Kate Hulett can juggle. Visit our TikTok account. You can see her juggling some onions, which is very Tony Abbott coded.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
That's all. We'll be back with more myths another time.
Okay, miss. Yeah. Okay, great.
Head to our channels, like, subscribe, leave us a review, share with your friends, go to our website, kateforfremantle.com, sign up to volunteer, donate.
Send us an email if you've got any thoughts. hello@kateforfremantle.com. Also on YouTube.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Or visit us IRL in the office.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Authorised by K. Hulett, 106 High Street Mall, Fremantle.